Oh boy. I am happy and a little... what's the word? Excited? Not in a negative manner, obviously. This is all good stuff that we're seeing here. The Redo Renovation Talk Volume 1. They are actually optimizing the game earlier than I expected. I actually expected it maybe like half a year down the line, but no, it's very, very early. A lot more than I really expected. So I want to go over this, and if you haven't watched my ZENLESS Zone Zero critique and review video, then make sure to check it out. The link will be down below in the description or in the pinned comment, whichever one. I highly recommend that you watch it because some of the things I will be talking about today will be referencing that video multiple times. And obviously some of the comments in there too that I have discussed with people. And I do want to note that I did test the game very thoroughly, at least up to the point that I reached, which was right before the end of Chapter 1. So I did not unlock the time system until yesterday, literally. So just FYI about that. And I do want to note as well that I was using test cases officially written out by groups of professionals who work in the game industry. So I wasn't just testing it out of the blue and without anything to guide me. And obviously accessibility is something that is very important in the game industry. At least it should be. It's an important discussion to have. So I do want to bring more emphasis and understanding of the importance of accessibility for everyone, not just those with health issues and disabilities, but everyone, literally. The more accessibility features we have that are both optional and as default, the better and easier it is for people to play games overall, and for people to have the same hobbies and share the games that they love with each other and everyone. So, like I said, we are actually seeing a lot of optimizations coming up in version 1.1, 1.2, and in the future. And it seems like they're going to be having a map of it out, so I'm looking forward to seeing that once they do release it. Now, obviously, this post is 16 hours ago, which I am still very shocked by and very happy by, but I do want to go over some of the more important ones. And like I said, I will be referencing the first video as well and some things in my notes that I took while I was testing this game as, you know, with formal training as a QA engineer or a former QA engineer. So the one thing that I was really happy about is that they understood that obviously many areas of the game needed further refinement and optimization. And clearly they got some of the good feedback from all of you, such as the connection between the HD TV mode and the combat experience. And also the more diverse and challenging combat options. That actually surprised me the most, that they would implement that already. It just felt like there would be a lot of things to fix in the code if they were doing that. But that's one thing that I was really happy about. And obviously optimizing some repetitive exploration experiences. So I do want to say that I was shocked when I saw the more diverse and challenging combat options, mostly because in my first video, I discussed the fact that there needs to be more difficulty customization. And that means usually having as many elements as possible that you can control the difficulty level by. And obviously the ultimate version of that would be total customization. In this kind of game, I don't really expect that, but they seem to be going down the route of preset overall for most of their issues, which I don't feel like is a bad idea considering the fact that total customization would really require a revamp of their code, which is obviously not sustainable. And it would make more sense to do presets because then it's less fixes in the long run and less breaking bugs for QA to have to test for. So I do want to go down. We'll be going through all 3 sections. Maybe not like super in detail with every single part, but with the ones that I find to be the most important for people to know that it's going to be happening. The first one is the manual chain attack mode. This one, let me highlight it for you. So right now, we don't have this ability to cancel chain attack combos, and obviously we can't do manual chain attacks either. The thing that I like most right now for someone who is focused on accessibility is the automated way of chain attacks. Now, there's nothing wrong with that for those who like it, but obviously for those who want a more complex gameplay style or would like to focus on their current character, it's not exactly ideal, right? So having this button makes it possible for those who do not have any health issues or disabilities to play this game and create their own manual chain attacks, just like in other fighting games or in other types of games that are similar to this one. I don't really know any examples, so if you have any examples listed down below. Anyways, so for this one, I do like the fact that you can cancel and it's manual. So for those who might still have issues, but maybe aren't really needing support or accessibility support with the combat, they could choose to, cancel the chain attack combo and go for their own way of combat if they would like, which is always a plus. There's nothing wrong with it. I think it's a very solid update at that point. Do you also agree that it's a very solid update, or do you think that they should have prioritized something else? Let me know down below. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was the series of challenging combat missions and game modes that will be continuously updated. As I said earlier, I felt that I was very surprised that they were already going down this route, but with the idea of the presets, it does make sense that they would be going down this route. So I'm very glad that they're going to be updating more challenging combat missions and game modes for the players, because it could mean that potentially they'll have a way for those who have trouble to not have to go through all the challenges and still be able to pick up the rewards. Unless it is only for rewards, and I don't know, maybe it's just the way that endgame works for this game. Who knows? Either way, I can see this update being a positive for those who want more accessibility, because it may be possible to request a toggle or preset that allows for such missions and game modes to be less painful to get through as someone who may not be interested in endgame but wanting the rewards. It might be a fair way to go about it, because even if you don't have any issues and you want more challenge, it doesn't mean that everyone is like you, and there are some people who might have physical disabilities or issues or cognitive or visual and hearing. All of that can make regular combat mode extremely difficult, but still, having the ability to make it easier or even max challenging difficulty mode is always beneficial for everyone. So, and even for those who aren't maybe gamers and they just want to get through the story and, casually enjoy the gameplay combat, that will always be helpful in the future for everyone. So I hope that with this addition of the challenging combat missions and game modes, we'll be able to see the light of seeing a toggle of some sort that is even easier make it easier than the casual current mode for some people. Because maybe there are some people out there who think the casual mode is actually hard, or because it's at the difficulty that it currently is, they're not able to play the game. So it would be nice to see, and obviously all of those updates would be optional, not required, because if it's required and is default, then it's going to be dissatisfying to a lot of players who don't have really a lot of health issues and disabilities, because gaming should be done by everyone, or for those that want to be in that kind of realm of world. Not world, I guess, but for those that enjoy that hobby instead of being stuck and not being able to play the games that most people like to play. It creates a sense of community that's stronger if everyone is looking out for each other in regards to accessibility. While I haven't unlocked the Shiyu defense, I do think this display of enemies' attribute resistance is not only going to be great for those who don't have health issues, but also for those who do, especially for the cognitive issues or those who don't have a great memory or anything along those lines. I do hope, though, that they don't just show the icon and they do show the name. But I don't really have a lot of hopes for that. But ideally, for most buttons and most icons and symbols, it's always better if it had the icon and the name under it. Because then your brain associates it and connects it a lot easier the more you see it. But if it's just the icon and only showing the icon, it makes it harder to remember for a lot of people with cognitive issues. So not that I'm saying that the person watching this video right now is unable to figure it out, or that you can't tell if the attribute resistance is the same as whatever agent you're using. All I'm saying is that it needs to be done in a way that's accessibility friendly for those people who actually need it. So let's always keep that in mind, that accessibility does not mean that it's going to be the default. It's going to be optional most of the time. For example, the colorblind mode, if they don't really have it right here in this game, but if they did, it would be optional. Obviously, it's not going to be default. Kind of like that. Same thing would be for the text size, for the button size, for the difficulty level, customization, and even making it easier. That would be all customizable and optional. It would never be ideal if it's, I guess, default. If it makes the aesthetics not great. But you should always have it available. And one thing I do want them to improve is actually telling us up front what accessibility features there are from the very beginning. And for those who do need it from the very beginning, to have an option where we get it all unlocked right there and then. Because there are some things where I know that they want to make it so that you can explore the area that they created, but it's not very accessibility friendly. And I know some of you guys said that the teleportation system sends you to the archives, but does not send you directly to the HDD system so that you're just standing there right in front of it, so you can just click F or whatever button it is to start. You have to still walk to the HDD system, which is why I was saying in the previous video that it's still a problem. And I still think it's a problem. Yeah, sure, you can, it's only like 5 steps or something, but that 5 steps can be very, very difficult for someone who has health issues or a disability. We want to consider that. Plus, it would be more time efficient for you. You save a little bit of time. I mean, sure, it's only like 1 second, but 1 second can be a lot, can't it? So that's one thing that I do feel like we have to keep in mind when we look at games from an accessibility standpoint. And obviously, when I am looking at a game, I'm not looking at it with personal viewpoints. I'm looking at it from a QA perspective to see if it's a good step towards accessibility or not. So even if you don't have a problem with it, doesn't mean that others don't. Because not everyone is the same as you. And if everyone is the same as each other and we had no health issues, obviously there would be no problems and life would be great. So the next one I do want to talk about is the battle menu interface on mobile devices that'll allow you to customize certain UI buttons within a preset plan. I do like this. I wish they would include the main menu as well. If they included the main menu, that would be a lot more beneficial. Kind of like a smartphone where you're grouping apps together. I kind of wish they would allow that. But I know that's going to be really hard to code, so I'm not going to suggest that. But I do hope that because they're letting us do a preset plan for customizing UI buttons for the battle menu interface, I do hope that they allow a certain level of customization for the main menu eventually, later down the road. I don't expect it right away, but I would like to see it happen in the future, or at least make it more optimized and grouped together in a way where you don't have to look through multiple levels of menus, which I know someone in the comments mentioned that they did not like in my previous video. So that was pretty much it for version 1.1. That was a lot more than I expected. Like at most I expected maybe like 1 optimization update, but this was a lot more than I expected. And it seems to be a good thing, which I hope they continue down this route, honestly. Obviously, it's a good thing whenever optimizations are made to a game because it makes the game smoother and it allows people to want to play the game more if the problems that were mentioned by others are fixed. So here we are at 1.2. Gosh, I can't believe they already have this planned out, but I guess it makes sense. for those of you who don't know, usually, and I don't really know which software they use, but when I worked as a QA engineer, we used a software called Jira, and we had several different categories, and one of them at the end would be bugs. And usually what would be done is that obviously QA would submit the bug, or the product managers, or both. It should be both actually, and maybe even engineer sometimes. But we would put the bug report in, and then the product manager would prioritize or label the priority level of it. So it could be like breaking, bug, urgent, or non-breaking, minor, something like that. So, and usually because of that, they don't really tend to prioritize accessibility bugs, unfortunately, unless it's so that they can avoid getting sued or something. That usually tends to be the case. I don't really know how they're doing it here, but it's nice to know that they're getting stuff done with the optimizations, especially with it planned out like this. So 1.2, they have the ferry assistance feature, which I really like. I do hope that they expand this feature to cover not just story commissions and exploration commissions, but for anything else that requires us to collect the rewards. That will make it a lot more easier for those of you who are struggling with finding what menu is for what and where to collect what. Especially for, like, for example, achievements or things like that. Like, you have to click on multiple things or press on multiple things in order to collect all types of stuff, which I know for a lot of you who don't have health issues or who don't have disabilities don't have a problem with. But for someone with, like, let's say you only have 5 minutes to play the game, it's very annoying. Especially since the game isn't like super quick. It's like, it takes a while to go to every single one. It lags a bit. And eventually all of that time of lagging will pile up and it gets extremely irritating to have to see. Now, honestly, if I wasn't talking about accessibility, I wouldn't really care too much, mostly because I don't have a problem with that. But if we're just looking at accessibility point of view, it's very, very irritating. And not good for those with, for example, physical disabilities who can't press buttons all day long and, you know, for a good amount of time. That's why they have the option where you can either press or hold when you're running through the city. So having this ferry assistance feature applied to everything would be great and ideal. And I do hope that people recommend it in the surveys as well in the future. But for now, I'm happy that they're implementing such a feature anyways for the story commissions and exploration commissions. Are you pretty excited for this ferry assistance feature, or do you think they should have implemented a different feature that would help you, I guess, save time more when you're playing the game? Let me know down below. I went down too far. Okay, there we go. So the next one that I want to talk about is the automatic accelerated playback. I assume the monitor array is talking about the puzzle with the TVs and you moving around and all that stuff. That's what I'm going to assume is what it is. So I actually did mention that the automatic accelerated playback is an accessibility feature, but I didn't realize until I was playing through my second account trying to catch up to my first one, so I used it a lot, is that it gets interrupted too often. So often to the point that it's not even worth turning it on sometimes. Like, it automatically turns off the accelerated playback. And I don't feel like that's really something that I should be doing. So I'm glad that they're fixing this and they're going to make sure that it doesn't get interrupted by other events. If I am talking about the right thing, please let me know down below if I am misunderstanding what monitor array is, because that would be very helpful to know. It's really hard to remember the names of the parts of the games in here, but either way, it's good that things are being improved in that sense. And then we'll go to the next one, which is the preset lineup feature. So I actually feel like this is another good, like I said, they're going down the preset route rather than total customization. So with this preset lineup, I think it's a good idea, especially for those who, like I said, don't have time or have, for example, cognitive issues or anything like that. Then this type of feature would be extremely useful for those who just want to get started. And obviously, ideally, everyone would eventually learn their agent's abilities and know what the perfect team is, which is why there are other videos for that, you know, on YouTube. I don't do that, but I know others like to release such videos. So those are useful, but sometimes people just don't want to watch those videos. So a preset lineup feature is always very beneficial, whether it's for someone who needs the accessibility support or not. But let me know down below what you think. Do you think this is a good idea, or do you think it's just going to add more to this, storage amount? I would love to know what your thoughts are. The other one I want to talk about is this one. This is actually something I wrote down in my notes during the testing that I did for Zone 0, but I didn't really mention in my first video, mostly because I did talk about everything in my notes initially, and then ended up being too long, so I cut it down by, I think, an hour and 30 minutes down to 12 minutes. So there were a lot that I want to talk about, but I don't think people would want to listen to me chat about accessibility issues and my recommendations for like an hour and a half. So that's like 12 minutes in the first video. But either way, this is one that I had in my notes where I talked about how training needs to be like currently before this gets unlocked, because I feel like I didn't reach the part where I can actually unlock it and use it, the training part. Do let me know when you can access that down below. But before then, you only have the demo that you can work with to essentially train and learn and familiarize yourself with the agent specific controls. But in this one, the fact that you can actually train and familiarize yourself with the agent specific controls without having to go through some kind of demo is quite nice, in my opinion. So I'm really glad that they have that. I actually did not know that they had that. So they definitely passed that test case now. It's just that it doesn't really make a difference in the ratings. Let me just tell you that the test cases were over 150. So I'm not going to say how many are in each category, because that would require me to manually, or I would have to take a look at it. But ZENLESS Zone 0 got the overall rating of D for accessibility overall. And obviously within accessibility, there are several categories like vision, hearing, cognitive, motor, and things like that. And even if they pass one test case, it's not going to significantly change the overall rating, because it was based on the percentage. And a lot of the percentages were near the end, lower end of the percentage. So that's why even if it passes like once or twice, it's not going to make a huge difference. But I can say that if they continue to make these optimizations, I can actually see ZENLESS Zone 0 making it into like a C and B if we're extremely hopeful. But for now, I can see them reaching C eventually, maybe after like 6 months or a year. I can see it happening if they continue with this kind of optimization in every version. So the next one I want to talk about is this one, the feature that allows you to freely change the time. One, I do hope that what they mean by after reaching a certain internaut level, they mean when we unlock the time system at the same time. Because if it's further down the line, then I am a little iffy about that. Mostly because their current way of letting you auto forward the time is very inconvenient and very unnecessary, and I don't see the point of it, to be honest, at this point. One, because you can only use it once a day, which is very limiting for whatever reason, and I still don't understand why they chose to go down that route. But second, it doesn't make sense. Like, if you want to implement such a feature, then you would want to at least make it more beneficial to everyone instead of just the type of person who actually has time to play the game for a very long time. And for me, this ability to freely change the time is a lot more useful than not. And if you don't know, the functionality that I'm talking about is the rest button. That's under the circle icon thing in the time panel. That's the thing that you can use to move forward in time, but you can't change the specific time that you want. You have to just click on it and then just moves to the next. So if you're in afternoon, then it just moves you to evening of the same day. That's pretty much how it is. It's not the next day or anything like that, which again makes it really inconvenient. Especially if they're going to tie it into a lot of missions, then it's very not beneficial. So I'm really glad they're adding this in because this will make it a lot more accessibility friendly, especially for those who might have a really good day. Like for example, if you have an illness where you only have a specific amount of energy and maybe one day you have this large amount of energy and you really want to play ZENLESS Zone Zero, then obviously you're going to binge play, right? But if you can't even do that and all the missions are tied to time, then you're basically forced to not be able to play and you don't have anything to do after that, which is a minus in my opinion if that was the case. But thankfully they're adding this, so I'm seeing that they are caring about what people are saying and the issues that people are experiencing. And it does make me wonder, this is just my personal thoughts, I do wonder if they are lacking in QA engineers or aesthets, mostly because sometimes I feel like there are some things that should have been caught by them or if they're just trying to do a lower amount. Basically, there are some times when a company doesn't hire any QA engineers or they only hire one. And obviously one is not enough to test an entire game. Okay, let me just make that clear. That's just impossible. That's like asking a dev to develop an entire game on their own within like 1 month. Especially this type of game, impossible. So obviously I do wonder if they're just relying on automated tests without having a QA engineer check that, or if they do have QA engineers but it's not that many, so they aren't able to check for the things like that, because I would expected them to do some UX UI testing and end user level testing or whatever it is, exploratory testing as well to some degree, but I guess not. I'm not really sure. It does seem like they were looking for QA engineers and aesthets to work for their company, and don't ask me to join them. I have my reasons for leaving tech, okay? It's not something I want to do for a job anymore. I do enjoy talking about this kind of stuff because I'm passionate about it and I love accessibility, and mostly because I have my own issues when it comes to games that I wish that they had accessibility features for someone like me, and they usually don't. And even for reviews, a lot of content creators don't really talk about it, which is not their fault. Most of them don't have enough training or understanding of what to look for in order to talk about it, or they just don't have the experience themselves to really talk about it. But because there's no one like that much in the gaming content creation realm, that's why I want to talk about it, because I am passionate about it and I love talking about it too. But yeah, I assume it's one or the other, where they don't have enough QA engineers, and so they can only look for breaking bugs and things like that, and they don't really prioritize other types of tests, or they just don't have any QA engineers of any kind, not even aesthets, which is kinda bad, but that's probably why they're looking for more. Either way, it is good to know that they are still trying their best to optimize with everyone's feedback regardless. And obviously optimizing background brightness is always a good thing. So the last section here that I would like to talk to you about is the later version. So we don't know when this is going to happen. They probably don't have an exact due date for it, judging by the wording. So they most likely have it in the backlog, but their product manager probably didn't put down a due date, which means that there's no reason for them to work on it right now, but it is in the works and in the mapping of the product, most likely the roadmap. So they do clearly have plans of letting you control other agents that you have, but I guess we'll find out later because they didn't really make, judging by how not detailed it is by the way they're saying it. They didn't plan out how they're going to implement this yet, at least judging from what they're saying. But they do have it kind of as like an idea bank. Like, oh, this is something that we should kind of do later in the future, but we could talk about like how we're going to implement it later. So that's probably why it's very vague. And hints of what you might be able to do in the future, but we don't really want to say it clearly, or else it'll be something that we need to implement soon, like immediately, which I don't think they want to do at the moment. And I don't think that would be possible either, even as a, someone who worked in dev before, or with the dev team before for software and websites. So this one, in continuously improving the models for some agents, I'm not really sure what they mean by visual experience, but I do wonder if it's the coloring or if it's the sharpness or anything like that. I am not entirely sure, but what do you think? What do you think they mean by improved visual experience? Because I used the colorblind simulator by taking several screenshots of the game. And one of the things I took screenshots of were the characters and of the gameplay, the combat, the main menu, and the city, and things like that. And I noticed that in most cases, the colors that they chose were good. But in some cases, maybe because of the way that they color things, or actually the visual experience isn't sharp enough, sometimes it's hard to tell what you are looking at through the colorblind simulator. So I do wonder if they're just going to be improving the lines, or if they're going to be improving the color, sharpness, or anything like that. Or if they mean that they're going to change the outfit and design of the models, then that's probably going to make some people mad again. I hope no one's going to do that, because I like how the current models look like. They look great. They don't need extra stuff, okay? It gives them some charm and uniqueness. Anyways, so let me know down below what you think is the improved visual experience. And of course, we have the optimizing interface interaction experience and the combat interface UI. I'm glad they're asking us for suggestions. And like I mentioned in the previous video, the UI for the combat and the interface is not exactly, especially for the button icons, they are not intuitive. And I know a lot of people don't have problems with it, but for those who do have some level of cognitive issues, which can mean a various level of things. So it could just mean that you don't have a good memory. Like I don't have a good memory. I really don't. After concussion, I stopped having a good memory. But that, and then it could be, trying to figure out what button is for what. It can be quite something. So I will be submitting my feedback and everything I talk about in the videos to the dev team for them to work on, and hopefully they will consider it. And if you would like me to do so, I can always create a document or a pinned comment of everything I'm going to submit to the survey, so that if you would like to also, submit the same feedback, then you are welcome to do so and just copy and paste it. That would definitely help them understand the importance of accessibility and for them to continue optimizing the game, in my opinion. And it seems like they're pretty open to it, so I would like people to let me know if you would like that kind of thing in the pinned comments, so that you can just immediately copy and paste it. I am more than happy to do that for this game, because I really like this game so far and I'm enjoying it a lot. So those are pretty much their plans for optimizing the game, which is a lot more than I expected, and I'm pleasantly surprised and happy about how it's going with this game. I think I have a lot more hope and excitement for this game out of all of their other games so far, mostly because of how the dev team is and what they're focusing on for this game. I think it helps that the game is very, very different from their other games. And what I mean by that is not only is the vibe different, and obviously the world lore is probably it's very disconnected, but also connected to Honkai Impact 3rd, perhaps. But maybe because of that, I have a lot of hope for this game, and especially because the different dev team and director, it seems, from my brief understanding. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong or give me more details down below. Then there might be more hope for this game when it comes to accessibility compared to the other games. I will be reviewing the other games as well from a more accessibility perspective. For example, Genshin Impact, Honkai Impact 3rd, Part 2, and Part 1. They will be separate because they're pretty different from each other. And also Honkai Star Rail are the ones that I'll be reviewing in the near future for their accessibility. Except there is one video that I'll be releasing that isn't really accessibility focused, and it's just more about my experience with Hoyoverse games, or with a specific one in particular. But you can see and figure that out for later. That'll be my gaming podcast, I guess. What is it? Series? Yeah. So that's pretty much how it is. So I'm really glad that they're focusing on optimizing. And it seems like they're going to be adding more fun and challenging combat elements, which again is really surprising to me that they're already doing, which I think is a good sign, mostly because I did mention it in my previous video, because I felt like it was a very important thing to mention as a recommendation. And the fact that they're adjusting the balance of the different game modes, which is also a plus. So let me know down below what you would like for them to improve on and optimize, and what you hope to see in the future. And if you also have hope for this dev team to work on the things that are huge bugs or even accessibility issues. And what do you think of the accessibility for this game? Do you like it? Do you think it's very bare bones? They need to add more and provide more support so that you can enjoy the game with your other friends who might have disabilities or even health issues? I personally am quite happy with the path they're going down, so I'm going to be looking forward to seeing more of their updates and their optimization plans when they do share it. And if you like this kind of video where I'm going over the optimization and things like that, let me know down below. I will have update videos out for ZENLESS Zone Zero where I'm talking about my impressions of the story. For example, I recently finished chapter 1, so I'll be having a video out where when I do catch up to that update, and then, talk about my story first impressions. I'll be talking about what I feel like they could have executed better. So this could be on accessibility level or maybe story related. And then what I feel like they executed really well, similar accessibility or story. And then also, showing my roles in case I get a, not 6-star, S-tier character. We never know. If I do manage to get it, then you will be seeing me react to my roles when that happens. If I didn't roll any, then you'll know, because there won't be a section for roles. Just saying. Makes me sad. I'm gonna hope that I have better luck with this game. But anyways, I will also be talking about updates that they make to the game that they release. As in, I'll be testing it out and then seeing if they executed it well or not. And also where it is, so that people will be able to see it and be able to play it themselves. Mostly because ZENLESS Zone Zero does not do a very good job with showing what accessibility features it has. And that's also an accessibility test case, by the way, that it failed. So I think maybe that is one thing that I will, mention to them in their survey. But yeah, that was one thing that I do want to talk about. And I will, like I said, the extremely long video that got shortened to 12 minutes, where I talked about every single thing that I wrote in my accessibility testing for the game. I'll have a quick accessibility notes at the end of those update videos for things I wanted to talk about but didn't mention in the first video. So yeah, you'll be able to find out more about my opinion about the game through there. It'll be 1 minute max, I think, because I'm only going to talk about one thing for the end of those videos, but I'm not going to overwhelm you with 1 hour and 30 minutes or something, because that is not short and quick. So just FYI about that. You can look forward to the ZENLESS Zone Zero update videos every update, I believe. And I might do more of these if there's enough demand and if people are enjoying these a lot and if they're really helpful to you. So my kits, what you think of today's video? We talked about the accessibility and optimizations they're making in the game, which I'm excited for. So let's make sure to etch this into our memory and keep it safe. And as always, formally inviting you to my next tea party, the so-called anime enthusiast Fox. Who's that? This was Dina. So until the next one then, bye!